touched on the fact that when you do drugs of that nature, your body needs it like it needs air. I mean,
Yes.
and I've read that, I've heard that the physiological response, I've had some prescribed medications that took me 2 years to get off of. And they're like, no, this is what an addict feels like. And imagine stopping it immediately. And it's just, even how hard that was getting off of, it was just an anti-anxiety thing that I should have never been given, but it took me 2 years of weaning off that. And that's just an anti-anxiety medication. And I don't think people get it, that the physiological response is so incredibly, it's pretty much life and death. That's a wild story. I mean, that's a wild, and I don't say story as if you're telling a story. It's just it's a wild story. Yeah. So your friend sitting across the table, did he kind of have an idea of what was going? You said it was just a second. No. So he's probably just going, this guy's tripping.
I have I have 5 days clean. He probably doesn't even know that I'm actually clean, Yeah.
So you have this thing. Did you go through physical withdrawals after that, or were you just done?
I 100% believe that Jesus is able to, strike someone clean, sober, no withdrawal, no cravings, none of that stuff. But that didn't happen for me. Mm-hmm. He showed me himself, and I was still shaking, withdrawing every day. And I embarked on the 12 steps. Right. And I did the 12 steps as if my life depended on it. I did my first ever 5th step on day 25, clean and sober. Nothing like super miraculous happened, but on day 26, my sponsor that was picking me up every single morning at 6:30 a.m. from my sober living house came and picked me up in his 1983 mailman Jeep, and we're on the way to the movie theater that he managed to go in the basement and do the work. 6:30 in the morning, I'm looking over at this beautiful sunrise, and I had a spiritual awakening that for the first time since I was 12 years old, I had no desire to drink or use.
That's a long time. That's a long time to be using. Yeah. So that experience where you woke up in the morning, you were, hungover, and your friend was calling you, was that really like the catalyst that just pushed you over to the end into the downward spiral?
Yes. And that's why I tell it, because, and I make sure that everybody knows that I didn't like start shooting up after that, and I had never used drugs before. The thing was that I had been using drugs, I had been partying, I had been drinking and stuff like that. And when something traumatic like that happened, when I had no other ways to cope, I had no other skills to be able to get through something like that, I dove directly into the one thing I know makes me feel good.
Yeah, which is basically just numbing yourself and not facing any of those things. Yeah. How have you come to deal with that pain? I mean, how long did it take you to kind of deal with this pain? I'm sure it was after you were, recovered or in recovery when you dealt with that pain of that loss of that friend. I mean, because that's a big deal, man. I mean, I still hurt tremendously. I got the suicide text from my buddy, and it's like, and he was texting me the day before, and it's like, why didn't I read between the lines? It's easy to look backwards and see all the evidence, but it's hard. It's really hard to overcome that stuff.
I actually told that story for the first time, the truth of it, randomly one day to a street level heroin dealer. I don't know what got into me, but I was just like, I'm going to tell him what actually happened. And then the way that he received it, was totally cool. Didn't judge me. No, shame, no guilt, nothing. And that was about a year and a half. No, that was about 2 years before I actually got clean, because that was actually, oh my gosh, that was the dope dealer that sold me the dope that I overdosed on.
Wow.
I just realized that on this podcast.
Cool. I mean, not cool, but cool.
Yeah. So it was almost exactly 2 years before I got clean and sober. So I was able to start being open about it. Yeah. And that's the first step to being able to find recovery from anything, is honesty. It's not just admitting I'm an addict, because I was admitting I was an addict for years. It was being honest. Like from the get, I started to have that, I don't need to hide who I am anymore. I told my boss when he first hired me, I'm a heroin addict, and because I'm honest and I had a good track record. I wasn't out there like lying to customers to make sales. I was really good at it, and customers loved me, even though I was a heroin addict, Yeah. And I just started to be able to be honest, and that made it so that when I was ready, I had nothing to hide.